All right, everyone. One final time, this is Madeline Chassel from the Secular Policy Institute. I'm the policy director here, and we're going to get started. This is our fourth international monthly call, and we're going to do a quick overview of the items you may have received on your agendas. Quickly, I want to remind everyone also that if at any time you want to speak and you're on mute, if you're on the telephone, you can press *6 to unmute yourself. Right now, I should have most people who have joined on mute just to protect the sound quality of our call. But again, if you want to speak, please press *6 at any time. If you're on the internet, you can actually press the microphone button to unmute yourself. And you can also reach me in the chat window if you have any questions or problems.
Madeline, I'm here.
Oh, hello. Hello, Edwina. Good. I'm glad we have you on the call. And is there anything you want to start us off with today, Edwina?
No, just looking forward to all the information that we have to pass out, and want to stress that we would like to get as many groups to sign on as possible on our letter to the Prime Minister of Bangladesh. We're going to close it out tomorrow, and then Monday we'll be starting a new letter, which has to do with LGBT rights around the world. So time's running out to get on the letter. It's a good showing so far. I think we have about 30 different groups from maybe about 10 different countries that have signed on. But we'll get into that. That's on the agenda.
Great. Well, we might as well get into that. I have the agenda on the screen for anyone who is with us online, and I'll be sharing my screen throughout our call today. Anything that we highlight, you can see visually there on your screens, hopefully. And if you have any problems with that, please talk to me in the chat window or *6. But yes, this is our hot spot of the month. Not to be put lightly, the bloggers killed in Bangladesh has been a huge international issue for secularism. And our team has drafted a letter, and we've gotten some great sign-ons already. Edwina, do you want to give a little summary of the content of the letter?
Sure. Yeah, so if you have a look at the letter, you can see that it is general enough that most groups can sign on, but then it's specific enough that shows that we are familiar with the situation, we're familiar with the government, we know that they're doing all that they can to try to prevent these types of killings, but we want to connect with them and offer our assistance and be involved and make sure that they feel supported. So we worked on the letter for several weeks, and we have Jason, who is in San Diego, who is our intern, our policy intern, and is getting his master's degree, I believe, in political science. So he's doing all the research on the particular issue in the country and comes forward with lots of information. So in fact, he had 5 pages full of detail. And then we use that information to get to just 3 paragraphs that, like I said, are really kind of at the 30,000 foot height, but then also has some specific detail so that they know that it's not just a last-minute cursory letter, that we really do care. So basically the letter is to the Prime Minister of Bangladesh, but then it's asking for its copy to the ambassador in D.C., and it's asking for a meeting with the ambassador so that we can talk further. Maybe there are some amnesty issues, maybe there's a way that we can help. And if we get the meeting, of course, we'll let the other groups know, and if they have someone in Washington, hopefully they can be included. And so with the groups that have signed on, people are just emailing me. We're putting the organizations down and their location so that they can see the diversity. And we'll probably send another reminder today, and then we'll close it out tomorrow, and we'll go ahead and send the letter, and then we hop on the new topic. And so we were given some additional information from our friends with the Watford Area Humanist Group in the UK, which was letting us know that they were having an event about this exact same issue, and we have a link there about that particular event. And like I said, we're off to the new topic, which has to do with there are approximately 21 countries in the world that have legalized marriage for same-sex couples. And we are particularly interested in issues that if there is a separation of religion and government angle. So if there's just a disaster relief type project, then you probably won't receive letters coming from us about that. There are plenty of groups that do that. So since there are so many religious people and religious groups that are opposed to the basic human rights for the gay community, we have decided that that's something that would be appropriate for the Secular Policy Institute and all of the coalition members to sign on to if they so choose. So, of course, these are sign-on letters. We don't sign on and say that every member group is agreeing to this. We simply say that the letter only represents the views of the group that have signed below. So we haven't gotten, you've gotten a good letter when people are not asking for verbiage changes, and we haven't gotten any requests to change the language. So hopefully we'll have good success again next week. That letter next week on same-sex marriage will actually be going to the Human Rights Council with UN, asking them to make this a priority. So we'll have action items in there, like with all the letters. It's not going to be just a letter for letter's sake. We're going to be asking that something be done, and we're going to be asking for us to get a seat at the table and to participate. Okay, so the main point here would be get your group signed on, and if you could think of any other groups that might be interested, certainly let them know about the possibility here. And then, of course, you can talk about the sign-on letter that you participated in back with your membership, back in your state or back in your country. You should receive, full credit for participating fully. All right, Madeline, I think that covers that topic nicely.
Thank you, Edwina. And I have a question about that. Would you think it's fair to say that one of the main immediate goals of the letter, obviously the long-term goal is to establish a relationship, but that in the short term, we want to help get fair prosecution for the murderers in the blogger case?
Yes, of course, it's to establish relationship, not criticize the government. If you look closely and you research the whole issue, the government, of course, they're appalled, they're devastated. It's hurting their image. Tourists aren't coming there. Businesses aren't coming there to invest. So there is a terrorist group that has a kill list, and they have targeted these people. Now, of course, some people are saying and thinking that the government hasn't done everything that they possibly could do and should do to make sure this is investigated thoroughly. But that's something that we could get into more in detail when we get our meeting. But if you just come on and you're just, completely criticizing them completely, then they're just going to, write you off and not work with you. So I think the way you phrased it is perfectly.
Yes, and it's certainly a diplomatic letter. And like you said, we have really a good researcher on our team now who made sure we had those details backing up what we were asking for. And further, Edwina, you mentioned the president of Watford Area Humanists had given us some recommendations. So anyone who can see the screen, the links to his support websites are listed both on your screen as well as I just shared them in your chat window. So that's another way to stay connected to this issue. I guess, Edwina, it would be nice to just do a quick overview of our World Future Forum, how that is panning out, any updates on that, and certainly share with people how they can join that event.
Yes, of course. So the World Future Forum, remember the main point of the World Future Forum is to get in front of decision makers. So it is, the big focus would be to have members of Congress in the room and their staff. Remember in the U.S., a member of Congress now, I do believe, represents about 750,000 people. So every member of Congress in the room is good for about 750,000 people. So we've got the topics pretty much sorted. We have more than half of the speakers already selected, and we have, a lot of good time left. The members of Congress tend to book their schedules a little bit later. So the concept is we'll have 2 to 3 experts per topic, and then the members of Congress will be discussants, and they're going to talk about the policies and laws that we would need to have in place to be where the experts are predicting that we will be in 25, 50 years from now, based on, of course, climate change, which is the #1 topic that the congressional staff and the congressional members are asking that we certainly cover thoroughly, which we are. And then another big topic, of course, is terrorism and violence and national security issues. And there are, separation of church and state issues in both of those major topics, and religion plays a big piece in both of those topics. And then the third topic, the space exploration, is something that is also a hot topic these days. We've gotten a number of requests for doing a briefing on transgender issues and some other LGBT issues, which is a topic that members of Congress are struggling with to try to sort out and figure out the public policy around those particular issues. So we've been on the hunt for experts in those arenas that we could bring in and add them to the World Future Forum. And if there's just not going to be time, then we'll just have a separate briefing on that particular topic. So basically there are like 100 to 110 slots during the day on Monday, and then Monday evening over at QW University, where all the students will be invited. Then there are many more like public slots there that's open to the public. So I would highly recommend, if this is something that is interesting to you, hearing these experts brief members of Congress, and then the members of Congress talking about, sort of getting their mind around any type of laws or policies that need to be in place, depending on what they heard from the experts. It's not a debate. It's not going to be where the members of Congress are going to be made to look out like they don't know what's going on. And it's not going to be a debate between, climate deniers. I mean, it's pretty much going to be, people, 90% of the scientists are certain that the climate change is happening, and a big piece of it has to do with human interventions and things like that. And then on the Sunday, there is the International Secular Leader Summit. So that's just a time to get to know your counterparts from around the world, and then we'll be talking about, how to do fundraising, social networking, what's working, what isn't working, and things along that line. So the registration is open. Like I said, it's capped on purpose to 110 for Sunday and for Monday. We already have the Sunday keynote speaker lined up, and Greg Copley, he's going to be taking us on a round-the-world tour of all the major geopolitical hotspots in the world, and touching on pretty much every continent, including the Arctic. And so I would just highly recommend to go ahead and get your reservation now. I believe it's around $290, which includes all your meals and everything. And then we've got a really good rate with the hotel. The hotel to Phoenix Park is just 2 blocks from the U.S. Capitol. So it's a small, quaint, but very high-level event that we have planned.
Thank you, Edwina.
Okay.
I think that it would be a good time for me to do a brief update from the Fellows Corner, particularly because I'm very excited about some of our new fellows, and I think a few of them will probably be in attendance at...
Can you be on the hunt for a restaurant for lunch?
Oh, hello? Excuse me. Sorry, I'm going to mute everyone, so just if you need to speak, please press *6. Okay, so sorry. So in the Fellows Corner, we do have a few new fellows that I'm excited to tell you about. And some of those, I believe, will be at our World Future Forum as special guests as well. One of those, and I'll use our Who We Are page at Secular Policy Institute to introduce each of these via their profile. We have Gregory Benford, who's an astrophysics and science fiction writer as well. Actually, an astrophysics scientist and a science fiction writer, so there's real science as well as science fiction. And he is from Mobile, Alabama, but he is a two-time winner of the Nebula Award and has won several awards in science. He actually has a vision for how we could take care of space junk that he shared with us at a recent event, and he's an ongoing advisor to NASA. So that's very exciting. I can also tell you about, let's see who's new here, John McWhorter, who is a linguistics and race relations specialist. He has some pretty incredible work into ancient languages, particularly Creole, and he has some very popular teachings and books. His teaching company includes The Story of Human Language, Understanding Linguistics, The Science of Language, Myths, Lies, and Half-Truths about the English usage. And his research is helping us understand, on the whole, that we actually gravitate toward more simplistic structures in order to communicate with one another as a human species. So his work is very interesting. We also have, new to the table, Donald Prothero. He's a climate and geological sciences expert, and he gives a wonderful talk on climate change. Very informative about where our world is headed at its current rate, how animals and species are being affected. He also does all of this through the field of magnetostratigraphy. I did not pronounce that correctly, but basically a technique to date rock layers that's used to examine the historical climate changes. So he's learned a lot about ancient climate change, and that informs how he can describe to us our current situation with climate change. He also has appeared on Jeopardy and with Ben Stein on the Win Ben Stein's Money Show, which I find very interesting. And I know we have one new other fellow. His name is Ian Morris. He's an archaeology and history expert. He's just come out with a book that is similar to Michael Shermer's book, if you've heard of The Moral Arc. He also is talking about how human values have evolved. And he has a very staunch historical perspective, very informed, and talks about the different types of adaptive behaviors that humans have gone through and how that has affected our human values. So foragers, farmers, and fossil fuels, how human values evolve, obviously to match the situation that we're in currently. So these are all of our new fellows. We are continually looking for people to add to the team who can support our cause and have a lot to share. And like I mentioned, many of those will also be joining us at the World Future Forum. So I guess I can hand the mic over to Johnny Montserrat, our Alliance Director, and any updates that you think we should know about, Johnny.
Hi, everyone. Well, lots has been happening. The biggest forward progress of the month is that we're working on a yet unreleased secular demographic guide. You're going to love this because it's the document that finally proves to politicians that non-believers form a voting bloc that they should pay attention to. It's got 36 pages, 42 diagrams, and 98 references, and we're going to get it out to you as soon as we can. It tells where secular people live, the breakdowns by age and gender and income level and marriage type, and a bunch of other factors. This month I've also been active working with the United Church of Bacon, which is working on a couple of big deals that are yet unannounced, but are going to accelerate the secular movement, hopefully. I've also been giving aid to the United Coalition of Reason, working on their website and social media and newsletter. Also given aid to Atheist Alliance International, writing up a project proposal for their Guatemala Library project. You may know the Secular Policy Institute has a whole bunch of projects on our website under the header Projects. And if you're curious, like, why are we posting other groups' projects to our website? It's because we're writing them. What we do is we take their ideas, and they're often kind of half-formed, or they aren't quite professionally packaged, and then we add our moxie. And hopefully this page on our website can become a center so that donors can, see what's happening and have more of a cafeteria model where they can pick and choose the projects that interest them the most. I've also been glad this month to give aid to the Free Thought Society, Margaret Downey, who's doing some advocacy fighting the Boy Scouts. Because they don't allow atheists in their organization, why should the Boy Scouts be allowed to recruit on school grounds? So that's an interesting issue that I've been giving aid to this week, and that's my report.
Thank you so much, Johnny. And I did, for anyone who's available on the web, open up one of our project tabs while Johnny was describing, and we do have 4 options on the website. You can view active projects, past projects, proposed projects that are in the works, and of course, if you have a project idea, please submit it using the project tab under Submit a Project. Edwina, is there anything from U.S. public policy or international public policy that you want to highlight today, or should we move into our speakers? Press *6 if you are speaking at the moment, by the way.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can.
Oh, okay, good. Yes, I have just a few quick things that I wanted to bring up. One, so as Johnny mentioned, we are working on this demographic guide, and when we get it out, it will be identical to everything that we work on, and that it's going to be open source and available for any and every group to repurpose and put their label on it, their front cover. If they even need help with the graphics, we can certainly help with that. And then that brings me to the Model Sector Policy Guide. So the Model Sector Policy Guide is a guide that I worked on when I was at the Sector Coalition for America. I got the idea because I've been running coalitions for 20 years, and I've done maybe about 30 of these. And we got maybe more than 30 people involved that wrote different sections, and we put it together on behalf of the whole sector movement, and we made it very clear. It's written right on the inside cover at the bottom that it's open source. It's available for any group, any person, anytime to use for however they would like. They don't have to ask permission from anybody. Now you're probably wondering, why do we do that? The main reason we do that is that the decision makers and their staff, the congressmen, the senators, the members of parliament, and their staff, they are grabbing this information from the biggest coalitions and the best sources. They drop it into a document, and as someone who worked for 4 different senators and worked in the White House, you grab the best information you can find from the most reliable source, from the largest group, the largest coalition, and then you walk with your senator as they're about to do a vote, and you hand them the piece of paper and you explain everything. So imagine if the congressional staff, if they found this good information on the sector movement and policy recommendations, but then they had to track down because it's copyrighted, they had to track down the people who put it together and get permission, but then obviously it would never be used. So our position is, and always has been, and always will be, that we put together these documents and we make them available to everybody for every purpose. I just wanted to clear that up because there's been some confusion about perhaps Sector Policy Institute copied or stole something from SCA, and I assure you we did not steal from the own ideas and the own concept that I created there. About the projects of the other groups, we simply are highlighting these other groups' projects to promote their projects, not that we're claiming that they are our projects or that we're copying them. So we're a coalition, so everything that we do has to be available to everybody else and can be rebranded. So I wanted to make that point very clear. So when we come out with our new document, you will see all the same language with everything that I've always used in the past, and it works very well. Imagine the last coalition I ran was the Healthcare Coalition, and we would produce policy documents. And pharmaceutical companies would reprint them with Pfizer on the front, and they would print 20, 30, 40,000, 100,000, pass them out to every doctor. We love that, and that's what we're trying to do here. So please, your group, take the information and reuse it in any way, and we will simply be proud. We will not think that it's inappropriate. Now, as far as U.S. policy update, what we have here, we have a summary of what's happening at the UN, and then we have some information about a jihad movie, and then we have the information here about the U.S. Sector Policy Guide, which I gave you the background on that particular guide. And
if I could jump in briefly, I thought I'd just say that Openly Secular and a whole bunch of other organizations also have like a no copyright, please, cut up and use whatever you can of our documents policy.
Yes, of course, yes. And I was very much involved in creating that particular policy there also when it was first getting started. So thank you for that, Johnny. And so we'll be working on regional policy guides, not one just for the U.S. We're not so parochial that we only care about the U.S. And when we get the regional guides, they're going to be free and available and can be used and cut up and taken and repurposed by all the groups in that region. We do hope so. Now, as far as the international public policy update, hopefully Hugo can walk us through that. And then we've got just a few other bits and pieces. And then I did want to leave a lot of time for our speaker, Linda Elder, with the Foundation for Critical Thinking, because she has a lot of good information to share. And I'm sorry, it's all of a sudden got really loud where I am right now. So I'll mute my phone, and then we will be hearing from a new group that just got their C3 charity status that we worked on for a number of months with them, Muslimish, and then we'll be able to wrap up for the day. I know it isn't an ideal day in the U.S. because most people are on their 4th of July holiday. Tomorrow is 4th of July and the anniversary of the birth of our nation. So, Madeline, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Edwina. And it actually isn't that loud. We can't hear any of your background noise, but thank you for the concern there. And I'll just echo for a third time, we are not proselytizing, but we are promoting secular values. So anything that we can do to do that, we will do. And Hugo, if you are available, I'd love to do as Edwina said and give you the floor to tell us a Latin America update if you have one. Are you there, Hugo? And remember to press *6 if you're only on the phone. Oh, we may have lost Hugo for the time being. So what I would love to do is that Hugo, or am I hearing some other background noise? Nope, I think I'm hearing other background noise. So I'll just make sure everyone is muted. And Miss Linda Elder, Dr. Linda Elder, if you are here, please speak up. I would love to introduce your foundation and hear all it is that you are up to.
Hello, I am here.
Can I just say I'm Kate?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you, Linda.
No, let's go east somewhere else. It's so loud here, nobody can hear me. Because there are all these trucks coming here.
Can you hear me better now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Are we also hearing Edwina?
I think we're hearing something.
I'm trying to mute my line.
Okay,
sorry.
that's okay. That's all right. Just *6 when you get the chance. That'll work. Sometimes I don't have master control over the phone lines that come in because they're more anonymous. So I have to trust our team to do it. I think that should be good, Linda. Do you want to try taking the floor? Linda, you still there? Oh dear. Linda, please press *6 if you're with us. You might be on mute.
Okay, how about now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I picked up the handset, and so I think I lost you. I had to unmute again.
It's fine.
So would you like for me to just begin by briefly explaining critical thinking?
Please do.
Well, first of all, let me tell you a little bit about our history, who we are, and who I am in connection with who we are. I am the president of the Foundation for Critical Thinking. I've been the president for over 20 years. I'm an educational psychologist, and our work was started by our founder, Dr. Richard Paul, in 1980 when he established the first Center for Critical Thinking that was established anywhere in the world. And he convened the first conference on critical thinking in the world in 1980 at Sonoma State University in Northern California, just north of San Francisco. And since that time, the Foundation and the Center have been working to bring about fundamental change in society, primarily through reforming education by bringing critical thinking into the fabric of the classroom, teaching and learning every day. As you know, and as anyone who's listening to this knows, we are very far from this realization anywhere in any human society, anywhere in the world. There are pockets of criticality all over the world in this conversation, let's hope. But we don't have enough criticality, that is high-level thinking, to bring about the world justice and the peace that we're capable of as human animals, as a human species. We are at a crossroads because we, as humans, because we face let's say, a few very difficult questions that are pressing and that are urgent and that impact future generations. And I'm thinking fundamentally now of what we're doing in terms of our human destruction of the planet, to be blunt. Of course, at the Secular Policy Institute, you're concerned with other specific issues that are as significant. But my point is that some of the issues are pressing upon us in a way that we simply cannot avoid these realities any longer. So for 30 years or so, 35 years or so, this country has been in let's say, a constant roller coaster ride of educational reform. And what we don't seem to understand as a collective unit is that until we get at the root problems in education and society, we're not going to solve these problems. And the root problems are in our thinking. And this is nothing new. Important theoreticians and thinkers have illuminated this problem throughout history, beginning and before Socrates. Our work is very much steeped in the Socratic tradition. Socrates said this: we're developing all these tools and we're learning a lot about the world, and science is exploding even at that time, 5th century before Common Era. And yet, Socrates said, we're not using these tools to understand the pathologies of our own minds. Of course, I'm using my language to describe Socratic thinking. But my point is that many deep thinkers historically have pointed out that humans are naturally pathological. We're naturally neurotic. We're naturally selfish. We're naturally biased, prejudiced. We naturally think our way is the best way. We think our way or the highway. We think you're either for us or you're against us. We think that if you agree with me, then your views are correct, and you disagree with me, then if you disagree with me, then of course your views are wrong. This is the way all of us think on a typical day, not every now and then. And so what we at the Foundation for Critical Thinking have done is we've asked this question: what is happening in the human mind naturally. What does the human mind naturally do? We learn that it naturally reasons. All day long we're reasoning. Throughout this conversation we're reasoning. The question is, what is the quality of our reasoning, and what are tools for intervention in the reasoning process? And so Richard Paul early on developed this toolbox, which we further developed in the last few decades, and that is he came to see that embedded in all reasoning are 8 elements. He came to see that whenever we reason, we have a purpose. We ask questions. I know that I presented the concept of critical thinking many, many, many times, and by the end of it, Edwina Rogers had command of some of the key concepts in a way that was very impressive, and she kept reminding me of, or you kept, Edwina, reminding me of the importance of bringing forward the concept of content as a mode of thinking, and reminding these legislative assistants that students need to learn to think within the disciplines, within every field of study. And so, yes, it was a very good summary. It was a wonderful trip. We are very appreciative of this entree into Congress in a way that we have never had before or known to be possible. And we intend to continue working with you to bring critical thinking in every part of human society that we can, because as you see, these are neutral tools that all humans have a right to, because we're saying that we're educating the mind. If we're educating the mind, then we're developing these tools, helping students developing these tools in the mind. And so we need this in the prisons, we need this in the schools, we need this in society in every way. And I'm thrilled to see that you have the miniature guide to critical thinking concepts and tools in your purse. That's a wonderful testimony in itself, because it shows that you're taking the theory seriously, which is what is difficult for us to get people to do.
Yeah. So basically, we're talking about, this is a concept that philosophers have been familiar with, but Dr. Elder and the other experts at the Foundation have spent their whole lives to research, digesting it down into usable bits that every human on the planet can understand and use. And it sounds like maybe Indonesia or Malaysia might be getting this for their whole school system before we do here in the U.S. But as I learned from Dr. Elder, we do have it in the military system. It is in the Army Field Guide there that is used by all the military, the system that they developed. So that's very encouraging. And then, Dr. Elder, can you just tell us about that one report, the research that you guys did at the request of the state of California, and what you learned there?
Yes, this is actually a very important for this upcoming bill, because it speaks to the problem of K-12 education, of the fact that critical thinking is not being fostered in K-12 schooling in this country. In 1997, the Foundation for Critical Thinking was asked by the Commission, state legislature, to determine through a study the extent to which colleges of education, both public and private, were fostering critical thinking, were fostering critical thinking in prospective teachers. The argument being, or the assumption being, that these teachers, once they graduated, would not be able to foster critical thinking if they themselves had not been taught it. And so the Center for Critical Thinking and the Foundation were asked to conduct a study, which was done statewide in the state of California. We looked at both public and private studies. This is a randomly conducted study. We looked at schools like Stanford, the UC schools, and we did both open-ended and closed-ended questioning, and we included also the schools, not just colleges of education, but also the other departments that students in those colleges would have to take classes in, so science and history and math and those subjects would be included. And so here's what we found in this study, that though the vast majority, 89% of the faculty said critical thinking was of primary importance to instruction, to their instruction, only 19% could give us a marginally acceptable definition of it. And even fewer could tell us, though they said they were fostering it on a typical day, very few could tell us, articulate clearly how they were doing this. And so what we found is something like this. Though faculty believe that critical thinking is of primary importance to instruction, they don't really know what it is. And we heard them faculty say things like this. We would say, well, what standards do you use to assess students' reasoning? And they would say things like, well, I'm not really sure, but so we'd say, well, how do you know that you're reaching A level or B level? Well, I'm not really sure, but I know it when I see it. So our question was, well, then how will the student know it? How can the student understand what you're asking for in these courses? And so what we found is that faculty do believe that critical thinking is essential to instruction, and yet they're not fostering it, and they don't really know what it is. And our study has been replicated at the high school level, and it's and there are new studies that are meta-analyses that are illuminating that critical thinking is not being fostered in any significant way in schooling at any level, in any place in this country. And so, and that doesn't mean there aren't pockets of criticality. Of course there are, but we're talking about significant differences in terms of how a student thinks when they enter our schools and how they think when they leave our schools. And what we find is that criticality is being ignored. So the study that we conducted and the other studies are all in line. They're all illuminating the same things. One, we're not fostering critical thinking in schools, and two, we don't really know how to do it. We have some ideas if we want to look at this from an experimental perspective or scientific perspective. But if we look at this from a conceptual perspective, it's easy to see how to foster critical thinking, because we know that we have to read, write, think, discuss ideas in our thinking using intellectual standards. And then if we understand the foundations of thinking, then we know how to learn to reason well. But we're a long way from having the data that shows us how to bring this into the classroom, because so few teachers now command a rich conception of critical thinking. So that was a long answer to your question.
Yeah. So Dr. Elder, I have a takeaway, a call to action for the 300-plus member organizations in the Secular Policy Institute, which cover pretty much every state in the U.S. and a lot of countries around the world, is that for secular groups who are looking for projects and missions, this is something that they could take on. They could take it on whether they're in the state of Georgia or the country of Georgia. They could simply start to promote getting critical thinking included in the school systems and in the public school systems and in the universities. Sometimes it's just a matter of letters and meetings and letting them know that the materials are publicly available. So I would encourage groups to take this on. If you would like to have private phone calls with Dr. Elder, myself, about exactly how you can go about this, especially in the U.S., education is completely controlled, 95% at the state level, and even, down to the county board level. So that would be my final comment on that particular topic. And thank you so much, Dr. Elder, for bringing this very important information to me and to everyone else in SPI. Even though I'm a lawyer with corporate finance undergraduate degree, I never studied critical thinking, so I'm very happy to have access to it through you, and we'll continue to promote this and talk about it.
Thank you, Edwina. And I just want to tap into what you said, and then I'll say goodbye because I know we're closing. And that is that I agree. There are many things that we can do to foster critical thinking. There are so many that the question is, where do we start? But let's take, for instance, in the state of Colorado, a couple of very fine educators worked with the state to bring a rich conception of critical thinking into the state standards, the K-12 state standards for education. But these have been superseded by the Common Core, and this is problematic because what was there before was superior, and those standards are sitting there. Well, maybe we should take a look at those. You see that there are many angles from which we can approach this problem, and many ways to contribute to the cultivation of fair-minded critical societies. And anyone who would like to begin should give us a call. We have resources. You can volunteer to come to our conference. You can join our online course. So please join our community, and we'll help you find a way to contribute to the movement.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Edwina. I want to mention that for those online, I've shared many of the links as you were giving your talk, Linda, to the different resources available on your website, including your upcoming event. So anyone who saw that on the screen hopefully got the access there as well, shared in the chat window. And before we wrap up, I want to see if we do still have Wissam in attendance from Muslimish. Wissam, are you there? All right, so hopefully we'll hear more about Muslimish next time. Oh, hello, you are there. Can you press *6 to unmute yourself? And you can tell us about Muslimish. Yes.
All right, thank you. I'm delighted to be with you in the meeting. Muslimish was formed about a couple years ago, actually. Basically, it's a group of ex-Muslims and Muslims questioning Muslims. So that's the unique thing about Muslimish. There are many ex-Muslim groups in the world, and we ourselves were inspired by the ex-Muslims of Great Britain, by the UK group, which is pretty much a very historical group and one of the oldest. But we found from our experiences that when a Muslim starts questioning, he or she kind of feel that an atheistic environment might be a little bit hostile for them because of the way they were raised, and they have a negative impression of the atheistic environment, or they have been raised and taught that to avoid such gatherings, and that it is anti-Islamic or Islamophobic. So we found that we are losing a lot of opportunity in communicating with such questioning Muslims by just creating one environment for them which is kind of strange to them, or they feel a little bit far from it. So we wanted to create kind of a middle ground for them, where they meet fellow Muslims or ex-Muslims or questioning Muslims that are passing through or have passed through what they're passing through, which is questioning some of the things that they used to believe in. So we created Muslimish to be an environment open to both questioning Muslims and ex-Muslims to exchange ideas and have the open discussions together. We've grown to about 300 members, and we've had the first annual conference, which Edwina Rogers was main person organizing, and we are working. Also, we appreciate so much her support in getting us into the 501c3 status. We are continuing to work hard to develop the organization and create the space where questioning Muslims and ex-Muslims can speak freely and support each other, create that support system that is very needed at the point of descent from religion, or at the point of apostasy, which is very treated very harshly in Islam, whether it is from a social way or through the Islamic governments and governments that are influenced by the Islamic Sharia. So I'm very delighted to be with you. Hopefully you'll continue to hear good things about the organization, and whatever we can do to support secular thought and secular movement, we are here for that.
Thank you so much, Wissam. Does anyone have any questions either about Muslimish or about the Foundation for Critical Thinking?
I have a question about Muslimish. Are you guys going to have chapters, and do you already have a website?
Yes, our website is muslimish.com, and we have currently chapters in a few cities in LA, San Francisco, Chicago, Detroit, Toronto, New York, and Paris. And as members join us from various cities, we open new chapters. We also have a Facebook closed group, and we have also forums on our website that once a member joins, he joins also the forums.
There's actually a great map on your website that I'm sharing with everyone here and sharing in the chat window, which shows your LA, SF, Chicago, Detroit, Toronto, New York, and Paris. It's very striking. I like it.
We have members also in the Middle East, and we try to be as conscious about security as possible, as not to affect anyone. That's a main concern for ex-Muslims in general, and for Muslimish as well. So we try to create as much layers of security for Muslims and questioning Muslims to feel secure in coming in such an environment. We focus on meetups, so we focus on face-to-face meetups rather than online discussions, just because we want to develop that person-to-person relationship and support. We continually we've continuously gotten various incidences and members who really have resorted back to Muslimish for support. Actually, yesterday there was a Syrian atheist lady from Beirut who was completely cut off from her family due to her beliefs, and she needed support because she was basically had no one to go back to. So she found us online. She communicated with us through online, and we don't have a chapter in Beirut, Lebanon, but we are working with the Lebanese atheist organization there. So we got her in touch with them, and they actually went to her. They provided her a space to stay, and they are supporting her right now.
Thank you so much. Does anyone else have questions? And if you do, just press *6 to unmute yourself. All right, any final thoughts from you, Wissam?
Thank you. I just want to let everyone know that Edwina Rogers and the ISP have played an important role in pushing Muslimish forward, and not only in terms of help with documentations and processes and templates, but also morally, giving us the confidence and moral support that we need to continue the mission. So thank you.
I'm very glad to hear that.
Thank you. It's our pleasure. And
absolutely.
We'd love to help any other group that needs help.
Thank you so much, everyone, for being in attendance today. And I think I know that I learned a lot of valuable information. We'll be back again next month. The first Thursday of every month is our schedule. So we will be back on Thursday, August 6th, and you'll see invitations go out the week before then. Take care.